Not everything in this world is exactly as it seems. In fact, there are many creatures in the wild that go out of their way to be deceptive, to disguise themselves as something entirely different from their true nature. Aggressive mimicry refers to a phenomenon in which predators or parasites take on the appearance of something harmless or even appealing in order to lure in their intended prey or host without detection. They might resemble food, an inanimate part of the environment, or even a potential mate. Whatever they choose, they're secretly a wolf in sheep's clothing. In the deep, dark waters of the ocean, the anglerfish dangles an alluring light from its head, ushering in little fish that it can trap in its mouth and devour whole. The alligator snapping turtle wiggles its long tongue like a worm, attracting hungry fish looking for their next meal. Instead, they become the meal for something bigger and more clever than them. False cleaner fish share their appearance of another species, one that helps clean larger fish in a symbiotic relationship. When the imposters find a victim, they swim close under the pretense of cleaning, only to take a bite out of them and swim away. Predators use similar illusions on land too. Anti-mimicking jumping spiders wave their false antennae in the air in an imitation of an ant's movements, isolating the insects from their colony before dragging them back to their lair to be devoured. The mouthparts of the male spiders are shaped like the head of an ant, but this imitation head splits apart to reveal the spider's fangs and its true intentions. The Photorus firefly lights up its body in a mimicry of other firefly species' mating signals, signaling male fireflies looking for companionship. When they respond to the call, however, they will not find a willing mate waiting, but instead a femme fatale of a firefly that just wants to eat. The spider-tailed horned viper has a bulbous tip on its tail, with false legs jutting out on either side. As the snake wiggles its tail, running it across the ground while the rest of its body lies in wait just out of sight, a hungry bird spots it from above. When the bird swoops down to seize the opportunity, the snake reveals itself, snapping up the unfortunate bird before it can escape. Thankfully, humans are so much smarter and more observant than fish, ants, and birds. We're safe from that sort of trickery. There aren't any animals out there who've learned how to look like something familiar, something every day, just to put unsuspecting people at ease and lure us into its waiting jaws. Right? Wrong. Only a couple of years ago, the SCP Foundation discovered a being that has mastered aggressive mimicry on a level previously unseen in the natural world. Unfortunately for us, its prey of choice happens to be humans, and its hunting ground is the very cities where we like to think we're safe from something much bigger, meaner, and hungrier than us. A short video went viral on a popular social media platform. The specific platform has been redacted from official files, but the details of it are clear. A popular creator on the app, a young woman known for her makeup tutorials and restaurant recommendations around her native city of Los Angeles. She was live streaming and answering questions while going about her day when she stepped onto a train at one of the metro stations around the city. The train was extremely crowded, and she was preparing to end the live video, planning to resume once she reached her destination. But just as she went to press the button at the end of the stream, something strange happened. The train went dark, and the space flooded with a strange, thick liquid. The girl screamed in either pain, horror, or both, and dropped the phone. Whatever it fell into must have degraded the phone at an extremely rapid pace because the video feed cut out immediately after a splash. All across social media, people shared the video with one question in mind: what happened on that train? Fans mounted a campaign to find the influencer, to help her if she was in any immediate danger, but there were no leads. Her friends and family said she never came home that day, and when authorities attempted to trace her phone, they could not get any kind of signal. Becoming increasingly concerned about this missing girl and the possibility of some kind of unreported train accident, authorities contacted the Los Angeles Metro and showed them the video footage. But every train was accounted for and in pristine condition. There had been no strange chemical leaks, no crashes, and certainly nothing like what the video appeared to show. At the same time, there were missing persons reports being filed all across the country, in every area with a thriving public transportation system. Not only were the occupants of the Los Angeles train unaccounted for, with no wreckage or bodies to be found, but people were disappearing in train stations in New York, Boston, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and more. A woman reported her husband missing after he called her to check in during his daily commute home from work. The train had kept going for much longer than it ordinarily did, drifting off of its usual route. He told her that something was wrong, that he had a terrible feeling of foreboding, and then the call cut off. He never made it home for dinner. A young woman was on her way to start an internship at a prestigious New York City magazine, but never arrived for her first meeting. When her would-be boss reached out to the girl's roommate, all he knew was that she had planned to take the train to work that morning. A private detective trailing a man's wife for him, looking for evidence of an affair, lost track of her when she stepped onto a train downtown. He took the next train, hoping to catch her at what he assumed would be her stop, but she never got off. He wasn't able to track her down and had to give her suspicious husband the news that his wife had somehow vanished into thin air. It wasn't just one or two people every so often either. Entire train cars of people were just disappearing, never to be seen again. No matter how hard anyone tried, they could not find any answers. No logical explanation for what could have happened. Fortunately, the video circulated so widely that it made it onto the feed of an SCP Foundation employee who was idly scrolling during a bathroom break. He was so shocked by what he saw that he almost forgot to pull up his pants before running out into the hall. Fortunately, he did remember and rushed to his supervisor's office fully clothed. After determining that the video was not a hoax or some kind of viral marketing stunt intended to sell a new brand of spicy chips, the SCP Foundation decided to launch a formal investigation into anomalous activity involving trains and subway systems around the country. Task forces were set up in every major city, and field researchers were assigned to take the train all day, every day, as much as possible. As they did, they would maintain communication with the head of their task force, who would monitor their findings via hidden cameras and microphones. A week passed without incident, and the Foundation was starting to wonder if somehow the Los Angeles video had been faked when the Chicago task force made a harrowing discovery. Officer Jamie Bauer was assigned to monitor the trains on Chicago's Blue Line, taking the train throughout the day and keeping an eye out for suspicious or potentially anomalous activity. 1 week in, and he pretty much had it down to a basic routine. He would grab breakfast, hop on the train, and enjoy his coffee and meal while reading a book and riding the train to its last stop. Then he'd pick up lunch and do the same thing all over again. He'd have dinner and repeat. It wasn't too exciting, but then again, excitement in this case probably meant horrors beyond his comprehension. So he was perfectly fine with traversing the city in a subway car and catching up on the backlog of murder mysteries he'd been meaning to read. It was Monday afternoon. He'd picked up a slice of deep dish pizza, excited to try it for the first time, and walked down into the metro station as he took his first bite. "Can you try not to chew into your microphone, please? It's gross." Dr. Susan Shepard, the head of the Chicago task force, spoke into Jamie's earpiece. "You got it, boss," he said, his mouth full. "Thanks. See anything unusual today?" she asked. "You tell me. You can see the video feed, right?" He took another bite, chewing as quietly as he could. "Sure, but you're on the ground. Just keep an eye out, okay? Be careful, and remember to draw your weapon if something goes south. Don't just disappear into your book and forget to keep your wits about you." Dr. Shepard sighed. "Yep, getting on the train now. Not going to talk much so these folks don't think I'm nuts." Jamie waited for the doors to open, and just for a moment, noticed that they seemed to stick just a little this time. Nothing to be too worried about, though. Everything looked normal, just as it had on every other ride he'd taken. He could feel the Agatha Christie book calling to him from inside of his tote bag, and he wanted to crack it open and see what clues Hercule Poirot had come across. But Dr. Shepard was right. He'd been slacking off. He needed to pay attention to his surroundings, so he did just that. He watched as the train car steadily filled up with passengers, college students with bags full of books and exhausted expressions, middle-aged people in business attire, tourists wearing souvenir baseball caps and snapping pictures of everything in sight. Before too long, the train was completely packed, and Jamie could barely move without bumping elbows with someone. It was a little claustrophobic, but that was public transportation. Jamie leaned back in his seat, pulled his book out, and focused on the comforting rumble of the engine, the rhythm of the wheels on the tracks. Suddenly, without warning, the train screeched to a stop. They were in the middle of a tunnel, Jamie assumed, from the darkness that flanked them out the window on either side. Wait, was it dark? Or had the windows just disappeared? He squinted through the blackness and tried to see what was outside, but he couldn't make sense of his surroundings. All around, the other passengers were becoming restless, nervous. Some were calling for help. Others were just complaining. "Doc, you seeing this?" Jamie hissed into the microphone. "I don't see a thing," Dr. Shepard replied. "Are you all right?" "Fine, the train's just stalled. I don't know where or what's wrong with it." Jamie began feeling along the walls of the train, looking for doors. "Huh, that's weird." "What?" "Well, the crack in the doors, when they come together, should be right here, but it's all smooth. No gaps or anything, like it's all one thing, and it feels strange, like..." He cut himself off as his stomach dropped, a sudden rush of fear flooding his senses. "Like what?" Dr. Shepard pressed. "Like it's alive," Jamie said shakily. "Campbell, what's happening in there?" Dr. Shepard began taking furious notes on her end. "I don't know, it's so dark. Everyone's scared. I'm scared. I don't think this is a train. I don't know what it is, but it's nothing good." As Jamie felt around, he smelled something sour, foul, and sharp in his nose. He heard liquid splashing onto the ground, the sound of something sizzling, and then people started to scream. As he felt along the wall, something dripped onto his hand, and then it started to burn. He cried out in agony as whatever had dripped onto him ate away at the skin, dissolving his hand bit by bit. "What is it?" Dr. Shepard's voice shook as she heard the pain in Jamie's voice. "Some kind of acid. Oh God, it's everywhere. It's on the walls, floors, it just keeps coming." He trailed off. Oh God, we're in his stomach. Whatever this thing is, it's eating us." "Campbell, you need to get out of there right now," Dr. Shepard ordered. "Draw your weapon, whatever you need to do, just get out." Jamie pulled out his weapon and started firing at the place where the doors should be, but the bullets bounced off uselessly, as if the fleshy material was the side of a tank. He fired until there was no more ammunition left, and then he just kept squeezing the trigger some more out of pure survival instinct. But all it got him was a useless click, and the certainty that the one thing he had brought with him in case of emergency was completely useless. All the while, the acid was creeping higher, dripping from every surface, filling the train car until it swallowed the cries for help and the screams of fear and agony. All Dr. Shepard could do was listen, helpless, as Jamie and the rest of the passengers were digested inside of the massive stomach. What happened to Officer Jamie Campbell was tragic, but it provided important information that the Foundation would likely never have gotten otherwise. They now knew a few key things about this new anomaly. It was some kind of living thing able to disguise itself as a train. It was resilient to bullets and firearms, and it was hiding in plain sight in order to hunt human beings. They had found the culprit for the rash of mysterious disappearances, and it was a race of unidentified creatures capable of taking on the shape of a common underground train. The newfound information quickly circulated throughout the Foundation, making its way to the various task forces assigned to Operation Metro, as it had been unofficially nicknamed. Task force members were no longer instructed to board trains. Instead, they would slip hidden cameras onto as many train cars as they possibly could, each outfitted with a tracking device. Then the Foundation could remotely monitor the trains for any potential signs of the mysterious creatures, looking for imposters masquerading as trains, without unnecessarily losing any more operatives in action. Now, as for what they would do once they found one of these massive creatures was still uncertain, but at least they had somewhere to start. The SCP Foundation tried and failed to contain several instances of the carnivorous species before they finally got it right. They attempted to freeze the inside of one train with liquid nitrogen, hoping to incapacitate the creature before it could feed, defend itself, or escape custody. The extreme cold seemed to have no effect, however, and the false train slammed its doors shut at the first sign of discomfort, then sped away at high speed. As it did, the task force members noticed that, though they could hear the sound of wheels on the tracks, they could see legs jutting out of the bottom of the creature, scuttling along the ground. Next, they attempted to take out the creature's legs and render it immobile so that it could be subdued. The legs were resilient to external damage, becoming hard as a rock whenever any weapon, blade, or other implement made contact with them. One task force member tried to physically hold some of the legs in place, but they shifted their shape, becoming appendages resembling tentacles, and threw the man out of the way before the false train hurried out of the tunnel and out of sight. They were then able to track down a predatory train just after a feeding, when it was slightly sluggish after a large meal. They pumped an aerosolized poison into the train's interior, the belly of the beast, potent enough to take out a dinosaur, and were relieved to find that the creature was unable to flee. Unfortunately, though they were able to subdue the creature, they killed it in the process. At first, they assumed it was just inactive, but it never resumed activity again. It was just like an ordinary train car, almost. When the interior was touched, it felt warm and slightly pliable, less like metal and plastic, and more like flesh. The longer the creature was still, the more the windows on the sides stopped looking like windows and started looking like wide, glassy eyes. The front of the train became a gaping maw, the silhouette of the conductor inside revealed as an extension of the creature's body, resembling a tongue. Survivors and witnesses were given an amnestic to remove any memories of the supposed killer trains running under their city, and the Foundation prepared to bring the dead specimen in for further study. A cover story was used involving massive repairs to the train system, and while the tunnels were closed off, they managed to remove the creature and transport it to a nearby Foundation containment site. There it was given one of the most extensive autopsies in Foundation history, and the first one conducted largely from inside the subject. The autopsy provided a more in-depth look at the nature of the bizarre creature and its curious nature. The creature, nicknamed the traineater, referring to its preferred disguise and favorite activity, was one of an apparent species of carnivorous predators that use shape-shifting and an advanced form of aggressive mimicry to prey on commuters, tourists, and anyone else in need of a ride from one place to the next. It would mimic the shape, feel, and sounds of a train, welcoming unassuming victims into its stomach, and once it was completely full and able to efficiently feed, it would release an incredibly potent stomach acid into the compartment and quickly dissolve everything inside. The creature was highly adaptable, able to harden parts of its body at will and display extreme resilience to weapons of any kind. Due to this nearly impenetrable flesh, victims trapped inside would be unable to force their way out. As the research staff turned in their autopsy results and official report, there was a sense of unease in the air, as everyone wondered, how many of these things are out there? Which innocent trip to work might be their last? And how on earth could they hope to contain something that could exist in endless numbers? Something so expert at hiding in plain sight. There was no realistic way to bring all these creatures into custody, and so they would have to neutralize as many as possible without being detected. Foundation operatives embedded in various city and state governments introduced new measures to renovate public transportation systems, including new sanitation protocols. As part of these protocols, all trains would be sprayed with a high-strength disinfectant before they could be certified for use. In reality, this disinfectant would be the same poison used to take down the first traineater the Foundation studied. Once any and all potent threats had been rendered harmless, trains that were found to be formerly living would be converted into fully functioning trains and allowed to run as normal in order to avoid unnecessary interruptions to the public. In addition to these containment measures, the Foundation monitors all social media for mentions of unusual activity on trains, or mentions of any more missing persons lost at metro stations. The original Los Angeles video that started it all was scrubbed from the internet entirely. So by all means, take advantage of your local public transportation options, but remain vigilant and keep your wits about you. And remember, next time you travel by train, if you see something, say something. More specifically, if you see something unusual on a train, if it looks a little different than it did yesterday, if its sounds don't seem quite right, make sure to let everyone around you know that it is not safe to be here, and quickly make your way to the exit. Then, maybe walk to your destination instead. It might make you a little bit late, but hey, better late than dinner. Now go check out SCP-342, A Ticket to Ride, and SCP-2086, Man-Eating Bus for more perilous anomalies on public transport.